So right now I am currently unemployed, and I think the title of this video is going to be Juggling the Paradoxes of Being an Unemployed Bum. Well, I don't really think I'm a bum, but I am actually reading this book called Embracing Your Inner Critic, and I've come to realize that that part of me that calls me a bum is the inner critic. And the good thing about being aware of the inner critic is that over time you can unblend from it, and essentially become more closely aligned to your authentic self. Now, every time I hit record, it's almost like I'm unable to think about what to say next, and even when I do talk, it just feels like I'm not being authentic. And then my inner critic, comes up once again. Gotta blow my nose. My inner critic comes up again, along with my part that's, trying to be a perfectionist. And they're both saying like, oh, you're not doing it right. You're not coming from self. You're being inauthentic. Like, this is not good. Like, let's end the video here. But regardless, my mentor, he said to me that it might be beneficial to create content trying to be authentic and using it as a tool to clear myself of, the conditionings that I have. And who knows, maybe to me it might seem pretty insignificant, but to someone who might end up watching in the future, it might be meaningful or beneficial to them, which I am hopeful is the case. But regardless, I think my main motivation is not to, make money. Of course, making money helps, but I think more than anything, it's about, connecting with other human beings to have a fulfilling and joyful life. I actually had a trip on 4 tabs of LSD, apparently, but for YouTube purposes, this is just a dream I had. But anyways, so I had this trip, I took 4 tabs, and I reached a space, and for anyone who's taken LSD or hasn't taken LSD, I think the best way I would describe it is simply, for me, it was a tool that allowed me to see what's already there, and it sort of made the structure, which I call me, like my body, my thoughts, it sort of dissolved that. Perhaps for someone who's not used to, having an ego that's like dissolved or maybe like not locatable, it might be a bit overwhelming. But for me, it was very enjoyable. And I had an intimate connection with consciousness where I was everything that I was seeing. And it really helped me to dissolve some of my traumas. And how I did this was during the trip, my sense of self, even just visualizing or thinking about my body, which right now I feel like it's here, like down here somewhere. Through LSD, it's like my body was like, it was like over there almost. That's how it would feel. It would feel like, it's no longer in the space where it usually is in space time. It was like on the walls or whatever. That's how it felt. So when I was kind of entering this phase, like very deeply, I just lied down. And while I was lying down, it felt very interesting. It felt like my body was like a mountain, and like, like I was just there, and I was the whole space. And I remember thinking like, a lot of people, they say when you're tripping on LSD, you should listen to Pink Floyd. I think that's the band's name. So I was listening to them. They had some really nice music, which resonated with me deeply while I was on LSD. And what it actually did was it brought me deeper and deeper and deeper into those uncomfortable feelings that I always have, like in the background. You might have them, especially, if you have something like CPTSD or, any like anxiety or things like that, or depression. So I just started exploring those feelings, and I guess you could even call these feelings parts. So I'm reading this book called No Bad Parts, where it talks about how instead of viewing the system, which I call Aditya, as one singular person, you can, view it as a system consisting of various different parts. So anyways, so this part that was holding those strong feelings of anxiety was located in my gut. So while I was listening to what it's actually afraid of, the music kind of like guided me down deeper and deeper. And ultimately, these parts, they're scared of death, and it might not seem like that obvious, at the start, but as you sort of settle and listen to them, it's usually because, at some point in your childhood or whatever, at school, there was a moment of like disapproval, or you felt the need to, act a certain way or be something, or maybe it's because your parents told you had to be something or do something or be better. And what happens is, in order to protect yourself, your inner critic starts embodying those qualities that your parents or school or society kind of pushed upon you. So what LSD made me realize was the part of me that was sort of being abused and felt this constant state of like anxiety was actually being criticized by me. So it was like I was causing the own problem to myself. And once I sort of intimately realized this, along with another realization I had, which now when I say it feels kind of strange, but I had like a very intimate knowing during the trip, which was that money, in a sense, is fake. Not in the sense that, it doesn't exist. It exists, but it's fake in the sense that we don't necessarily need to, work a traditional job with a traditional salary to like earn money. What I realized was that since everything is consciousness, and there's conscious beings all around me, as long as I remain in that space and come from my heart, money can just be exchanged between us. Like, that's how it always works. Like, money is being exchanged through consciousness at this moment, but for some reason there's something feels heavy about it. And when I work a job, it just feels like, you're always in debt. You're always in debt to something, which I don't like. But anyways, those realizations about the trauma piece and like that money isn't something that necessarily needs to be chased after and can be relatively easily obtained. That allowed me to have like a deep surrender in some part of my gut, which was massive. Like, once that released, like so much like space and, you could say like freedom was felt in my gut. And that felt really good. And I think, yeah, after that trip, like, I didn't even feel like talking much. Like, I just felt like talking just felt like such a hassle. And that state that I was feeling of, you can call it peace, maybe slightly more clarity, that space that I was in, it can't really be articulated and described by words. And it almost feels like talking in itself is just an attempt of the parts within me to, gain some sort of like approval, or some sort of like, feeling that, I'm better than what I am, or whatever. And that's also related to my own conditionings. But yeah, there's so many layers to this awakening stuff. I don't think that there necessarily is like an end point. Maybe the end point is like the death of this body. I'm not too sure. But I think my perspective has shifted as of late towards using this awakening journey as a way to release myself of the conditionings that I felt and the traumas that I hold. Yeah, I think I've heard this like, quote. I don't know who invented it, but I think a few people have said it, like Frank Yang and my mentor, Lucas, which is like, wake up, clean up, grow up. Something like that. So, yeah, I guess in summary, this entire awakening experience to me is literally coming into your adulthood and maturing. And there's another thing that I heard recently that really resonated with me from Matt Garrett. And I might be, paraphrasing, but he said something about childlike maturity. And, traditionally we think that's very paradoxical, like a child can't be mature. But the way I see it is our inner child, which is so vulnerable and so protected under our parts and under our protectors, and, hidden away, often carrying a lot of our trauma, perhaps, those parts, I think, have a very deep sense of wisdom and innocence. However, coming into this world, it's inevitable for that part to contract back. But over time, as we reconnect with that part, through parts work, through psychedelics, through meditation, as we reconnect with that part, I strongly believe that you can live life with a greater sense of ease and purpose. And these are the parts which are gonna rescue humanity, so to speak. Not saying that it necessarily needs rescuing, but I always feel like we're always playing on that line of, oh, we might, descend into some sort of chaos. But at the same time, I like to think that God is running this whole show. And yeah, we also have a part to play, and that eventually gets revealed on its own accord. And I honestly don't know what I'm doing. Like, I'm sitting here, like, on the street, waiting for the library to open so I can finish reading another book I'm reading called Embracing Your Inner Critic. And yeah, it's interesting, it's fun, but at the same time it's scary, because being in this space, which is often looked down upon in modern day society, being unemployed and not doing anything, but maybe I'm doing more than I've ever been doing, because I'm doing the work that I feel like is so important to me in order to live a fulfilling and authentic life, which I really value. So yeah, I'm just along for the ride, and I'm just interested to see where this all goes. And that is